Dabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Ayes 62.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 1978 by Senator Lanza, Senate Print 7946. An act to amend the public health law.
Last section.
Section 5, the statute take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Ayes 62.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 1979 by Senator D. Francisco, Senate Print 8002. An act to amend the civil practice law and rules.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 1980 by Member of the Assembly Pretlow, Assembly Print 6124C. An act to amend the racing parimutuel wagering and breeding law.
Last section.
Section 2, the statute take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Ayes 61, nays 1. Senator Kruger recorded in the negative.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 1981 by Senator Felder, Senate Print 8083. An act to amend the education law.
Last section.
Section 3, the statute take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Ayes 59, nays.
Senator Kruger to explain her vote.
I right to explain my no vote. My understanding is that under the specifics of this bill, education money, public funding, intended for bus trips from 4 o'clock on for students could actually instead be shifted to pay the private school tuition of certain employees. One, that's taking the money away from actually busing the children, and this is a capped funded program, so it would actually be reducing the number of children who could get access to busing from 4 o'clock on. And two, if in fact some of this funding went to private school tuition that was religious school tuition, it would be a violation of church state using government money to pay tuition for religious schools. So on those two grounds, Mr. President, I must vote no. Thank you.
Senator Kruger to be recorded in a negative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1981, those recorded in the negative are Senators Hassel-Thompson, Kruger, Montgomery, Perkins, and Sanders. Ayes 57, nays 5.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1982 by Member of the Assembly Gunther, Assembly Print 9171A, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Last section.
Section 6, the statute take effect on the same date, same manner as chapter of the laws of 2015.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young.
Senator Carlucci to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this important piece of legislation. This legislation, the ABLE Act, stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And what we are really doing is recognizing the significant and the extra cost it takes for living with a disability. And not only an individual living with a disability, but also a family raising a child living with a disability. This legislation recognizes that extra cost. So what we're doing here is allowing for individuals and families to set up accounts which would accrue tax-free and allow individuals to spend that money on achieving a better life experience. So doing things like having accessible technology or education, or allowing people to apply for and achieve work and be employed continuously. So I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this legislation. This will make sure that we get these accounts off the ground and running and allow people to really make sure they're achieving that better life experience. So I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this legislation. I'll be voting in the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Carlucci to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator D. Francisco to explain his vote.
Yes, I want to congratulate Senator Carlucci on this amendment to the program that he spearheaded last year, and or maybe it was the year before. Years blend like days blend nowadays. But the reason it's important for me to stand up is we had a young woman here, Kayla McCune from Syracuse, who has Down syndrome and won an award, National Award for Advocate of the Year, for advocating for helping people with Down syndrome. And this is the bill she's been advocating for several years until it was finally passed and now amended. And I know how much it means to people with disabilities, and it's an important bill. And Senator Carlucci, you should be commended for your continued efforts in this area. Thank you.
Senator Marchone to explain her vote. Senator DeFrancisco will be
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator DeFrancisco will be recording the affirmative. Senator Marchone.
I'd also like to congratulate Senator Carlucci on this legislation. Last year, if you all remember, on Down Syndrome Day, we all had silly socks that we wore. And this year, we also had a special resolution in recognition and honor of the Down syndrome population. This is a terrific bill. I have a nephew that has Down syndrome. I ended up having a wonderful opportunity to go down to New York City and speak. And one of the things that they said when I was there was this was the most important piece of legislation that they had on their agenda. So I'm thrilled to see this come through again with the amendments in it. And I want to congratulate Senator Carlucci on this. Thank you.
Senator Marchone to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Aye, 62.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 1983 by the Assembly Committee on Rules. Assembly Print 10713, enacted on the Arts and Cultural Affairs Law.
And the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young.
Senator Squadron to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you and the rest of this House have often heard me stand up and talk about the fact that there are great things we should be doing in the state of New York, but the majority in this House does not allow them to happen. That is not the case on this bill. This is a bill in which, working with Senator Lanza in a bipartisan fashion, this House, with Senator Lanza's leadership, passed the best reform to the ticket reselling law since it was changed almost a decade ago. Senator Lanza's bill that passed this House would have cracked down on the bots that purchased 1,000 tickets in 1 minute for a U2 concert, 15,000 tickets in 1 day for 20 U2 shows across North America, 520 tickets in 3 minutes for a Beyonce concert, et cetera, with both a misdemeanor and a felony penalty. That bill would have gone even farther that Senator Lanza passed through this House unanimously. Based on the wisdom of some other states and in the UK, it would have created more transparency in this market. Remember, markets are supposed to have transparency than we currently have. In fact, in the UK, they did a study on transparency in the ticket selling market, and they found that ticket reselling platforms often make it difficult to distinguish between primary and secondary websites. The secondary websites are paying search engines to appear first when someone searches for tickets to events. Secondary resale sites appear at the top of listings in Google searches and others, which causes confusion for consumers who assume the first results are the most legitimate or the most relevant. Displaying the face value and the fact that it's a secondary site ensures that people know they might still be able to get tickets at face value on the primary market. Ensures folks know that the refund, if the show is canceled, as happened to my sons and I in a Nets game this winter after the snowstorm, are going to be different at a secondary website. Allows consumers to know that there may be other cheaper options available. That provision passed this House. Unfortunately, it's not in this bill, because unfortunately, we would not have been able to get a law with those provisions, despite the great work of Senator Lanza and the bipartisan work of every member of this House. That is disappointing. It is deeply disappointing because we know that ticket reselling laws have been taking advantage of consumers in this state for almost a decade, and Albany has done nothing about it. So today we're doing something about it. This bill is an important step forward. It's going to crack down on the bots that are abusing the system. I thank Senator Lanza for pushing this as far as it could be pushed, but I also want to say, as the Attorney General's great report showed, there is more we must do to crack down on abuses in ticket reselling and to fix that market. Those of us who believe in markets should know.
Senator Squadron, how do you vote?
Perfect information is a perfect market. Thank you, Mr. President. I am coming to the conclusion. Unfortunately, we are not fixing the market. We are cracking down on a major abuse. I thank Senator Lanza for his leadership. I thank the Attorney General for his extraordinary report. And I look forward to working with the governor on this. And I think you have to know, to quote Taylor Swift, yesterday I spoke about a famous constituent, Statue of Liberty. Taylor Swift, also a equally famous constituent of mine, because the player's gonna play, and the hater's gonna hate. Baby, we're not gonna shake it off.
Shake it off.
We're gonna get this done. I vote yes, Mr. President.
Senator Squadron in the affirmative. Didn't sound like Taylor Swift, though. Senator DeFrancisco, can I have some order in the House?
I just wanted to mention it's comforting to me to see Senator Squadron praising Senator Lanza so much. It's an amazing thing. And the reason I say that is I've got something I have to disclose. I have to disclose this about Senator Lanza. He told me recently that on his birth certificate, it says, Andrew Rules Lanza. This is Senator Rules. This is Senator Rules.
Senator DeFrancisco, to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Aye, 62.
The bill is passed, and Senator DeFrancisco, that does complete the Senate Supplemental Calendar 56A non-controversial reading.
All right, would you please do the controversial reading?
Secretary will ring the bell. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 1954 by Senator Boyle, Senate Print 5523, enact amend the tax law.
Senator Kruger has asked for the bill will be laid aside for the day.
Calendar number 1960 by Senator DeFrancisco, Senate Print 6049, enact amend the labor law.
Senator Kennedy. Senator Squadron.
Thank you. The sponsor would yield for a couple of questions.
Senator DeFrancisco, do you yield?
Lay this bill aside temporarily and go to the next controversial one?
We will lay this bill aside temporarily and move on to another Senator DeFrancisco bill.
Calendar number 1967 by Senator DeFrancisco, Senate Print 7378, enact amend the workers' compensation law.
Senator Dowell.
President, would the sponsor please yield for a couple of questions?
I will.
Senator DeFrancisco yields, Senator Dowell.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco. Does your Bill 7378 seek to amend the budget portion that related to paid family leave, a budget that was previously adopted by this legislature earlier in the year?
To give relief to small business owners with less than 50 employees from the paid family leave provisions.
President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yields.
Yes.
At that time, Senator DeFrancisco, how did you vote on that portion of the budget?
Yes. And you know why?
Why?
The reason I vote yes is because, unfortunately, the way the budget process is, there's bills that require you to vote for a package of many, many different bills. And some bills are horrible, some bills aren't so bad, some bills are wonderful. And so you don't have a choice to pick and choose what clauses you say yay and nay. But during the budget process, I made my position very clear on this issue.
Thank you. Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Can the sponsor confirm that your bill would carve out the employees of businesses with less than 50 employees from the paid family leave program?
Yes, sir.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Just like they do, by the way, in California.
Sponsor yields.
So,
Well, just a point of order. I don't believe California does exempt.
okay,
I
there's
don't believe.
okay, go ahead.
But would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Considering that the paid family leave program was just recently enacted in our budget and really doesn't take effect until 2018, why do you see the reason or the purpose of this bill now?
Sometimes in order to get ideas into law, you have to put a bill in, do it again, educate, try to get in a position where people understand your position, and maybe, rather than in the heat of the budget, to try to get that as a priority item for anyone. And I believe that this is important for small businesses who have a tough enough process trying to make a living in this state and create jobs. So it's more to keep things active on this issue so that when we do get to a budget time again, maybe we'll have convinced more people than we did the last time. Yes.
Senator DeFrancisco, you mentioned the small businesses, obviously ahead of the enactment date of 2018. How many small businesses are we looking at throughout the state with less than 50 employees?
I have no idea. I have no idea. The principle is that there are states with paid family leave. If it's not California, I know there are some, and that it's logical to do it because larger businesses are in a position, and we've done this in other type legislation, because larger businesses are in a much better position to provide this benefit.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Again, my understanding is that California, New Jersey, the other states that do have it, Rhode Island, do not have an exemption for small businesses. But being that as May, you do not know how many businesses, would you know how many employees are we talking about would be affected by this carve-out?
Do not know. But I do know that we've made this carve-out in other areas of the law, and I thought that was a logical point to provide this potential change.
Would the sponsor continue to yield? Carve-outs not in paid family leave.
No, in other areas.
But not paid family leave. Just as a point of order, before another question, just so that the sponsor understands, we may not know how many businesses below 50 employees, but while doing the research and working on this issue, we were looking at carve-outs below businesses of 25 employees, far less than the 50 suggested here in 73, 78. And of the businesses with less than 25 employees, 2 million workers throughout the state were going to be affected by that carve-out. So would you agree that if we're looking at, the sponsor will continue to yield,
Sponsor yields.
would you then agree if we were looking at businesses less than 25 affecting 2 million, certainly your bill, less than 50, would affect far more than 2 million workers throughout the state?
Absolutely, and if you would like to negotiate to 25 and support that, we could make a deal right now.
So is the sponsor, if we continue to yield, is the sponsor willing to lay this bill aside for the day?
Pardon me?
Will you agree to lay this bill aside for the day and we can renegotiate?
No, we've got time. We'll be here a while.
Unfortunately, we have time. Unfortunately. Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Does the sponsor believe that the employees that are carved out, now we're talking more than 2 million employees throughout the state, do you believe that these employees that are carved out that would not be receiving paid family leave have differences, have needs that are different than those of people who would get paid family leave in our state, that they don't deserve paid family leave or they have different needs due to your carve-out?
The fact that in order to pay paid family leaves to employees, you have to have employers. And if employers are being hit with additional costs of doing business, especially the smaller ones, whether you do it 25 or 50, you're in a position that you're going to have less jobs. You have less jobs, you don't need paid family leave because you're home all the time. And one other thing that I think is extremely important, an aspect that really kind of got lost on people. Some small businesses have told me that not only would they have to pay paid family leave, but if they're, say, a group of a business with 10 employees, and 2 of them have paid family leave, and so they got to hire 2 more employees to fill that need when the other 2 employees are out. When the other 2 employees come back, they're going to have to pay unemployment for providing the 2 employees temporarily, and the costs get spiraling up. And what'll end up happening is the owners of these small businesses, especially the very small businesses, will be working 70 hours a week rather than 60 because they don't want to have to hire somebody temporarily. So it's a real burden. It's not just a philosophical argument. So wherever the line is drawn, whether it's 50, 25, or something else, this has got to be reconsidered.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Thank you. I am so glad, Senator DeFrancisco, you brought up the cost to a small business. Because of the many variations and changes that paid family leave went through during its negotiations prior to the budget, the one constant that really remained was that there would be no cost to the businesses. That other variations, other alternative bills had costs, minimal cost to the small businesses. The budget bill had no cost to the small businesses. It was a payroll deduction from the employee, a deduction obviously paid by the employee so that the employee certainly would be paid by this fund, and that the small businesses would not have to pay the employee, could actually pocket that money of that salary. So the fact is the small business would have no cost to themselves. It may be a small administrative procedure, but no actual cost.
Onto that?
Sure.
Okay. I just indicated some of the costs that they have. They have a cost of having to hire a new employee and then paying, they have training a new employee, they have to hire a new employee, they have to pay unemployment when they have to fire that new employee. So there is cost, the interruption in the business and the like. But I got another proposition for you. There's no cost to the employer right now. I will bet you on June 17, 1916, that within 5 years there will be an estimate that the cost of paid family leave is so dramatic that we're going to have to find another source to pay it. And guess where that source is going to be? The taxpayers of the state of New York. I'll bet you $5 right now.
Did we approve the gaming and betting of? I don't think. With a
Yes, Senator Bonasek has a
ask
new
members-
bill.
right.
It's coming up on the last
Fantasy
calendar.
sports, right.
And members, please
Next
direct
Rules
through the
Committee.
chair.
Sorry, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Again, is the sponsor aware that when we looked at paid family leave and we structured it in such a way, we looked at other states that had similar concerns that you did, but they've had paid family leave for many years now. California, Rhode Island, New Jersey, they've had the businesses there actually, polls will show that they actually liked paid family leave. Are you aware that we looked at other states and these other states are not, their small businesses are not having the issues that you foresee?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how satisfied the small business owners are.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yields.
I was just told that the federal has an exemption for small businesses. Oh, I forgot this. That's why we have bright people running this place. The federal paid family leave has an exemption for employees 50 or under. So there's precedent for this, and what other states do, I can't tell you precisely.
If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Sponsor yields.
Federal leave, unpaid, apples and oranges. So that's why I didn't bring it up. That's why we don't compare it. Paid family leave, totally different than the federal family leave, which is unpaid. Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Does your bill 7378 have an opt-in clause for these small businesses?
An opt-in?
A small business carved out under your bill can opt in to paid family leave for their employees.
I don't think so, but I could imagine if it's a free society and people can contract with their employees any way they want, they could certainly offer as an incentive to be employed or a little extra, depending upon what earnings they have and what ability to pay. Certainly they don't have to opt in a specific program. They could provide that benefit without a government program.
If the sponsor would continue to yield, Mr. President. So under your Bill 7378, we would have some employees in New York State covered, some employees not covered, unable to opt in. That's your plan, Senator DeFrancisco.
That's my bill, and that's my proposal.
Okay. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
I guess last question. Remaining hours, possibly days in session. Is there an assembly sponsor for your bill?
No.
On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Addabbo on the bill.
All along, we've always said small businesses, employees, all workers, all businesses throughout the state need paid family leave. We are really breaking ground for our state, for our workers. And we've always said that. To have a carve-out, especially of 50 employees or more, which would now we know would affect more than 2 million workers throughout the state, would put these small businesses at such a disadvantage. They cannot compete with the large businesses who already have paid family leave out of their own pocket. They didn't even wait for us to do it. They're paying for it out of their own pocket. And these small businesses can't compete with that. These employees of these small businesses wouldn't be able to retain these productive and credible employees because of this carve-out. As stated in the approved budget, all workers, all businesses will be benefited by paid family leave, and therefore I do not see a reason for this one House bill today, and I'll be voting in the negative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Savino.
Senator Griffo, don't sound so disappointed. Would Senator DeFrancisco yield for a couple of questions, just for clarity?
Senator DeFrancisco yields.
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Senator DeFrancisco, I just want to make I have a couple of questions. I just want to make sure I understand. Because the language of the bill, thank you. So I have two. I have to keep going back and forth. So the language of the bill, you're redefining what an employer is. So an employer, except when otherwise expressly stated, yada, 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 and who has 50 or more employees. So essentially, you're changing the definition of what an employer is with respect to workers' comp law and disability law under Chapter 600 of the laws of 1949. Do you foresee, if this bill were to pass in both houses and be signed, would it affect any other sections under the workers' compensation and disability laws?
I don't see it as doing that, and I can state unequivocally that that was not the intent.
I would imagine it wouldn't be the intent, but you can say unequivocally that that's not the intent, but I'm not sure I would agree that unequivocally that wouldn't be what would occur. I would suggest that that might, in fact, actually happen, because I'm not sure that the way the bill, because it's a very narrowly drafted bill, that it would not, in effect, remove coverage of all the other types of protections that employees would have under the law. On the bill, Mr. President. No, thank you. Well, I might completely disagree with the intent of the legislation, having worked on paid family leave for many years. I don't think that what Senator DeFrancisco wants to do is deprive people of coverage for workers' compensation or unemployment insurance if they are in fact entitled to it as an employer. I would suggest that since he recognizes that this might be a long-term problem, I think he said in his own comments that sometimes you introduce a bill and you have to do it a few times before you make it right. You might want to take another look at this, because I do believe the way the bill was drafted, it could very well lead to an employer with less than 50 employees being in a position where they wouldn't have coverage for workers' comp at all, or TDI, or any of the other requirements that we have for employers, in an effort to take the burden off of them on paid family leave. Again, I disagree with that as a burden, but I do think the bill is too broadly written. I'm unfortunately going to have to, again, disagree with my good friend Senator DeFrancisco and vote in the negative on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Panapinto.
Yes, on the bill.
Senator Panapinto on the bill.
You know, I think one of the proudest pieces of legislation this body passed was paid family leave. And some of the statistics Senator Addabbo was asking for, I actually have. I mean, if we raised it to 50 employees, 80% of New York State employees would not be covered, because the majority of employers in the state, the vast majority, are under 50. So this is really about, you know, gutting, you know, the most progressive piece of legislation that this body has passed in maybe the last 10 years, to provide paid family leave to mothers and to fathers to take care of children and sick grandparents and sick parents is something that's wildly popular and necessary in this state, and we really should not consider undoing a great piece of legislation which is going to benefit working families across the state. So I vote no, Mr. President.
Seeing and hearing no other senator that wishes to be heard, debate is closed, and the secretary will ring the bell.